All right, guys, it's time for tip number 15. Like I said, I'm sorry to break a couple hearts again. I know that a lot of people are addicted to their dairy, but we're going to encourage you to actually limit your dairy, if not completely cut it out, especially if you're struggling with any rashes, autoimmune disorders, any gut issues. Now, the way that we consume dairy, it's in a processed form. We got to realize that. So it's pasteurized as well as homogenized. Now, what that means is pasteurization. They're using high heat to kill any bacteria in there, but they're also killing any enzymes in there that help us actually digest it, making it very hard to digest milk and milk products. The other thing they do is they homogenize it. So they essentially separate the fat within the milk. And what this does is it actually increases the possibility of the milk becoming rancid. Obviously, we don't want to be consuming rancid foods. We got to realize that up to 75% of the population struggles with digesting one of the sugars in milk. So 75% of the population can't actually break down lactose. They're what we call lactose intolerant. We lose those enzymes past infancy or past weaning, right? Which makes sense because we aren't genetically designed to consume milk past weaning. Very, very important for the first couple years of our lives. But after we wean, we no longer need to consume milk. So it makes sense that we'd actually lose those enzymes. Now, the other thing is milk contains a protein in it called whey. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard that. Now, what whey does is in the body, it acts very similar to, let's say, a candy bar or sugar. It creates an excessive insulin response. And remember, when we increase insulin, this is actually going to, especially if we increase it fast, it's going to increase inflammation and it's going to lead to a decrease in cell-mediated immunity. We want to make sure that we have a strong, healthy immune system, especially right now. The other thing with milk is a protein called casein. I'm sure most of you have heard about that as well. And it can contribute to inflammation and leaky gut. It's actually very, very similar to gluten. In fact, a lot of people with celiac disease, it's very common for them to be intolerant to casein as well. And that has to do with the casomorphins in it, a metabolite from milk. It's almost like a morphine-like compound. And because of that, it's also been associated with neurotransmitter dysfunction. Neurotransmitters are just chemical messengers within the body. So it could be contributing to things like headaches, delayed psychomotor development, even autism, and potentially type 1 diabetes. So if you're an individual that consumes cheese and then you get a headache, or you consume cheese and then you just feel kind of mentally foggy, you may be sensitive to casein, and it really should be something that you severely limit in your diet or you completely limit it altogether. The other thing is it is a growth food. We got to remember that cow's milk, that's what we typically mean when we say dairy, but cow's milk is a growth food for baby cows, right? So they can get bigger and stronger and fatter. Same thing if you apply it to a human. So what milk has in it is something called growth factors, and it could be a potential contributor to certain cancers, acne, even hormone issues. So we really want to make sure that we limit our dairy consumption. Now, the last thing I want to talk about in regards to milk, I'm going to stop picking on milk here in a little bit and give you some solutions, but milk actually lowers a compound in the body called urate. Now, normal levels of urate can act as a great antioxidant for the brain and can protect us against conditions like Parkinson's. So if we have a decrease in urate, it's actually a risk factor for some neurologic disorders. So here's some solutions. What we suggest, if you actually feel like you need a substitute, let's go ahead and try something like almond milk or coconut milk or another nut milk. But here's what I want you to look out for. A lot of those milks can have a lot of added sugar as well as compounds like carrageenan. We want to stay away from that stuff. Don't want to be consuming anything that's overly processed. So the other thing that we encourage you to do is we encourage you to treat these substitutes as well as dairy products more like a condiment. Okay, so if you feel like you have to have your dairy, then let's just be smart about it. The occasional cup of yogurt with some fruit, as long as it doesn't have a ton of added sugar in it, could be great. The occasional full-fat cottage cheese, once again, could be okay if you tolerate milk okay. The other thing is full-fat cheese, right? If every once in a while you have a piece of full-fat cheese, not reduced-fat cheese, it could have some potential health benefits to it. But watch out for headaches, watch out for stomach issues and stomach aches. And whenever we are consuming dairy, we need to make sure that it's full fat. If it's low fat, that's actually more acidic in the body. So we want to make sure full fat dairy. Now, the things that I'm going to give you full permission to eat are go ahead and eat your grass-fed full-fat butter, right? There can be some awesome fats in there. The other thing is ghee. So we've talked about this clarified butter or butter oil. They separate the liquid portion from the solid portion. So trace amounts of lactose as well as casein. So even if you are sensitive to dairy, you should be able to consume ghee. So we need to remember that dairy is a food that people get addicted to. We've seen it personally in our weight loss program. Just like bread, just like sugar, this has to do with the casein in it, right? And the morphine-like metabolites. So you might have to actually wean yourself off of dairy. In our clinically, we see a lot of kids with skin issues, with allergy issues, with immune system issues, and so many times those conditions can be massively improved if we just pull dairy out or severely limit their dairy consumption. So hopefully that helped, guys. Starting tomorrow, actually, we're going to be giving you some tips on potential toxins that you could be pulling out of your lifestyle. I hope you guys have enjoyed so far, and we'll meet you for tip number 16 tomorrow.